Part 1. The nature of anger, why it strikes so quickly. Let's be honest for a moment. Anger is one of those emotions we all know far too well. It sneaks up on us in the most ordinary situations. Someone takes too long at the checkout line. A colleague talks over us in a meeting. A family member makes a careless remark. In seconds, our chest tightens, our thoughts race, our voice rises. Why is anger so fast, so automatic? Why does it seem to take control before we even know it's there? This is not a modern question. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and emperor of Rome, wrestled with the same issue. He lived in a world filled with betrayal, political plots, military battles, and constant criticism. If anyone had a reason to be angry every day, it was Marcus. And yet, in his private notes to himself, what we now call the Meditations, he left us an extraordinary roadmap for understanding and mastering this powerful emotion. Anger feels natural, but it's not always necessary. Here's the thing. We often treat anger as if it's unavoidable, as if it's a reflex we have no control over. Someone insults us, we snap. Someone cuts us off in traffic, we yell. Someone disappoints us, we stew in resentment. But Marcus challenges that assumption. He reminds us that anger is not simply something that happens to us. It's something that we create inside ourselves. He writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What does this mean in practice? It means that no event, no careless driver, no rude comment, no mistake by a friend actually forces you to get angry. The event is outside. The anger is inside. And the gap between the two is where your freedom lies. The first step in understanding why we get angry so easily is realizing that anger is not a necessity. It's a choice. It might not feel like one in the heat of the moment, but with awareness, you can begin to see that split second where a different response is possible. Anger is born from expectations. Another reason we get angry so easily is because of our expectations. We expect people to act in line with our standards, to drive safely, to be polite, to remember our needs, to respond when we call. And when they don't, our expectations collapse, and anger rushes in. Marcus, however, took a very different approach. Each morning, he reminded himself of this simple truth. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. Notice how practical this is. Marcus didn't wake up hoping everyone would be perfect. He prepared himself for the reality of human imperfection. That way, when someone was rude or careless, he wasn't surprised. He wasn't blindsided. And without that shock, the spark of anger had no fuel to grow. Anger thrives on surprise. When you expect perfection, you're constantly let down. But when you expect flaws, you meet reality calmly. Why anger feels so powerful. But if anger is such a destructive force, why does it feel so powerful in the moment? The answer is that anger tricks us. Feels like strength. Feels like control. Feels like we're standing up for ourselves. But Marcus warns us that this is an illusion. He writes, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Think about the last time you were angry. What caused it? Maybe it was something small. Someone ignoring your message, someone speaking harshly, a stranger being inconsiderate. And what happened after? Did your anger actually improve the situation? Or did it make things worse? Most of the time, anger leaves a bigger scar than the event itself. The argument drags on. The relationship suffers. Your peace of mind is shattered for hours. The spark was tiny, but the fire it lit was massive. That's why Marcus saw anger not as strength, but as weakness, a failure to master one's own mind. True strength, he believed, is being calm when you have every reason to explode. Anger is a mirror. Another profound insight Marcus gives us is this: anger is often a mirror. We get angry at traits in others that we dislike in ourselves. He writes, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." Imagine this. You get angry at someone for being late. But haven't you been late before? You get furious at someone for making a careless mistake. But don't you make mistakes too? When we're honest, we realize that much of our anger is hypocrisy. We hold others to a standard that we ourselves fail to meet. By remembering our own flaws, we soften. We see the other person not as an enemy, but as a fellow human, struggling, imperfect, learning just like us. This is not about excusing bad behavior. It's about remembering that anger rarely makes it better. Compassion, patience, or silence often accomplish more. The Stoic mindset, reframing anger. So why do you get angry easily? According to Marcus, it's because 1. You forget that anger is a choice, not a necessity. 2. You carry unrealistic expectations of others. 3. You mistake anger for strength when it's actually weakness. 4. You forget your own flaws while focusing on the flaws of others. That's a harsh truth, but it's also liberating. Because once you understand where anger comes from, you can begin to loosen its grip on you. And that's the journey we'll continue in the next parts of this essay. We'll look deeper at how anger is really a judgment, not a fact. We'll explore the heavy cost anger brings into our lives. And most importantly, we'll learn the practical techniques Marcus used to master it. Techniques you can start applying right now. But before moving on, I want you to pause and reflect. Think about the last time you were angry. What really caused it? Was it the event or your expectation? Was it the person's action or your judgment of that action? Did your anger actually help, or did it only leave you with regret? These are the questions Marcus Aurelius asked himself every day. And by asking them, he transformed anger from a master into a servant, an emotion he could observe, understand, and rise above. That's the beginning of mastering anger. And it's where we'll continue, step by step, as we move forward. Part 2. Anger as a judgment of the Stoic lens. When most people think about anger, they imagine it as something that happens automatically. A button gets pushed, and anger explodes. Someone insults you, and you feel the burn. Someone ignores you, and resentment boils. It feels as if the emotion is injected into us by the outside world. But the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, saw things differently. They believed anger isn't caused by events themselves, but by the way we judge those events. In other words, anger isn't an outside force. It's an inside interpretation. Events don't hurt us, our opinions do. Epictetus, another great Stoic, put it bluntly, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Marcus echoed this idea countless times. He reminded himself again and again that the world itself is neutral. Things happen. People act. Nature unfolds. None of this on its own has the power to make you angry. The power lies in the meaning you attach to it. Let's take an example. Imagine someone cuts in front of you in line. The event itself is simple. A person stepped into a spot ahead of you. That's all. But then the mind begins to judge. That's unfair. They don't respect me. They're selfish. I'm being treated badly. Those judgments create the emotion of anger. Without them, it's just a stranger moving into a space. Marcus wanted us to see this clearly. Anger isn't in the action, it's in the interpretation. The power of reframing. This realization opens up a powerful tool, reframing. If anger comes from how we interpret events, then by changing the frame, we change the feeling. For example, instead of thinking, that driver disrespected me, you might think, maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they just made a mistake. Instead of judging, my friend ignored me because they don't care, you could reframe. They might be overwhelmed, distracted, or going through something I don't know about. Does reframing make the event less annoying? Not always, but it makes it less toxic. It transforms anger into understanding, or at least into neutrality. Marcus constantly practiced this mental shift. He zoomed out from the personal story and reminded himself of a larger perspective. The Stoics called this objective representation, seeing things as they are without the drama our mind adds. Anger as a story we tell ourselves. Think about it. Anger is really a story. It's the narrative your mind builds around what happened. The event. Someone spoke harshly. The story, they insulted me, they don't value me, I've been wronged. The event, a colleague missed a deadline. The story, they don't respect my time, they're irresponsible, they're sabotaging my work. The story is what makes anger flare up, and stories are under our control. We can question them, edit them, and even discard them. Marcus knew this well. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Read that again carefully. This you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's liberation. Anger isn't an unstoppable storm. It's a judgment you can withdraw. The illusion of personal attack. One of the most common triggers of anger is the feeling of being personally attacked. Someone criticizes you, mocks you, or treats you unfairly. Immediately, the mind says, "This is about me." But Marcus questioned that. He saw that most of the time people's actions reflect their own state of mind, not some grand statement about you. He advised himself, when another blames you or hates you or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you. In other words, people act according to their own nature, their own struggles, their own ignorance. When someone lashes out, it says more about them than it does about you. The wise response, then, is not anger but understanding. Not weakness but detachment. Freedom in the pause. Here's the practical question. How do you apply this in real life? How do you catch yourself before anger takes over? The answer is the pause. The Stoics taught that there is always a gap, a tiny moment between what happens and how we respond. That's the space where judgment forms. If you can catch that space, you can change everything. Instead of reacting instantly, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what actually happened in plain facts? What story is my mind adding? Do I want to keep that story? Or can I let it go? This pause breaks the automatic cycle of anger. It reclaims the power Marcus was talking about, power over your own mind. Anger is optional. This might sound strange, but the Stoic message is radical. Anger is optional. Not always easy to avoid, but always optional. You don't have to carry it, you don't have to let it rule you. Think about children. A little kid might throw a tantrum over spilled milk. To them, it feels like the end of the world. But as an adult, you see it differently. You smile, clean it up, and move on. The difference is perspective. Stoicism teaches us to apply that same maturity to all of life. What feels like an outrage might, from another angle, be just spilled milk. Marcus wanted to remind himself of this over and over. That's why he wrote in his journal daily, reflecting on his judgments, challenging his assumptions, reframing his perspective. He wasn't preaching to others. He was training his own mind. And if an emperor of Rome, a man facing betrayals, wars, and endless pressures, could learn to see anger as a choice, then surely we can do the same in our smaller, everyday lives. The gift of reframing. So, let's recap. Why do we get angry so easily? From a Stoic perspective, because we confuse events with our judgments about them. Because we tell ourselves stories that inflame the situation. Because we take things personally that are rarely about us. Because we skip the pause and dive headfirst into reaction. The antidote Marcus shows us is reframing. See the event clearly without the drama. Question the story your mind creates. Remember that you always have the power to revoke your judgment. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming free. Free from being yanked around by every careless word or thoughtless action. Free to respond with clarity instead of being enslaved by reaction. And that freedom is priceless. Because once you master the judgment, you master the emotion. Part 3. The heavy cost of anger. Why it hurts more than it helps. Anger always feels justified in the moment. The driver who cuts you off. The colleague who disrespects you. The friend who betrayed your trust. It feels like you must be angry, as if your rage is a weapon of justice. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us that anger often leaves behind deeper wounds than the original offense. He wrote, How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? This one sentence captures the tragedy of anger. The spark that lights it is usually small, but the fire it creates burns through far more than we expect. Let's explore what Marcus meant. The spark versus the fire. Think about the last time you lost your temper. Maybe someone interrupted you or a family member said something careless. The cause of your anger might have been tiny. A few words, a moment of impatience. But what followed? Did you snap back with something sharp? Did you stew in resentment for hours? Did the argument spiral into silence, tension, or regret? The spark was small. The fire, the aftermath, was large. And the larger fire is the part you live with long after the spark is gone. This is what Marcus warns us against. Anger always claims to protect us, but in reality, it harms us far more deeply. The cost to relationships. First, let's talk about relationships. Anger is one of the fastest ways to poison trust, intimacy, and respect. Think of how many friendships have been broken by harsh words said in a moment of rage. How many marriages have eroded under the acid of constant anger? How many parents and children carry wounds from years of sharp tempers and raised voices? The Stoics understood this well. They believed that harmony with others, treating them with fairness, patience, and respect, was essential for a good life. Marcus wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question. What fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" Notice the humility here. Instead of exploding outward, Marcus urges us to look inward, to remember our own flaws before condemning someone else's. This perspective softens the anger and preserves the bond. Because here's the truth. Relationships rarely break from a single act of anger. They erode drop by drop, word by word, until resentment becomes permanent. Stoicism teaches us to stop the erosion before it begins. The cost to your own mind. Anger doesn't only hurt others, corrodes the person who carries it. Marcus compared the angry mind to a person who hurts themselves while swinging at someone else. He saw that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting another person to get sick. Modern psychology confirms what Marcus intuited. Chronic anger leads to stress, anxiety, even depression. The mind loops endlessly on the event, replaying it, feeding it, giving it more power than it ever deserved. Marcus warned himself not to let this happen. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When someone wrongs you, the natural temptation is to mirror them, to respond in kind, to repay offense with offense. But the moment you do, you've allowed their action to change your character. You've let them shape you into something smaller. The true victory is not retaliation, but self-mastery. The cost to the body. It's not just the mind that suffers. The body pays a price too. Anger pumps adrenaline, raises blood pressure, and floods the body with stress hormones. In small bursts, this response can be useful, a survival mechanism. But when anger becomes frequent or chronic, the physical toll is immense. Heart problems, insomnia, immune issues, all worsened by a mind that can't release anger. Marcus may not have known the medical science, but he knew the feeling. He felt the strain of leadership, the temptations of rage, and the importance of calm. He reminded himself to return to reason, because he understood that calmness was not just virtue, it was health. Anger wastes time. Another cost of anger is the sheer waste of time. Think about the hours lost replaying arguments in your head. The conversations you carry long after the other person has moved on. The mental energy poured into bitterness instead of creation, joy, or peace. Marcus had an empire to run, wars to manage, philosophy to reflect on. He couldn't afford to waste time on anger. He urged himself, and now us, to let go quickly, to return to what matters. He wrote, "You will not have time to read. You will not have time to write. You will not have time to be calm if you waste your time in anger." For him, every hour spent in rage was an hour stolen from philosophy, from virtue, from the pursuit of wisdom. For us, it's the same. Every hour lost to anger is an hour stolen from peace, love, creativity, and presence. Anger pretends to be strength. Perhaps the most dangerous cost of anger is that it pretends to be strength. It feels like we're standing up for ourselves. Feels like power. But Marcus saw through this illusion. He knew that real strength is not the ability to explode, but the ability to stay composed. He wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. Calmness is not weakness. It's mastery. Anyone can yell. Anyone can lash out. But it takes true strength to remain steady when the world tries to shake you. Anger is easy. Self-control is rare. And the rare is always more powerful. The Stoic alternative. So if anger costs us so much, relationships, peace of mind, health, time, and true strength, what's the alternative? For Marcus, the answer was always the same. Reason, compassion, and perspective. When anger arises, the Stoic response is not to suppress it violently, but to question it gently. To ask, what is this really costing me? Is my peace worth sacrificing for this? Will this matter tomorrow or in a year? What would it look like to respond with calm instead of rage? These questions cut through the illusion of anger. They remind us of the true price and help us choose a better investment of our energy. Marcus Aurelius saw anger as a thief. It steals more than it gives. The event itself is often small, but the anger magnifies it into something destructive. The cost is heavy. Broken relationships, restless minds, weakened bodies, wasted time, and the illusion of strength. But once you see anger for what it is, a costly indulgence, you gain the power to resist it. You begin to value your calm more than your outrage, your peace more than your pride. And in that shift, you move closer to the Stoic ideal. Strength not through fury, but through composure. Part 4. How Marcus Aurelius Mastered Anger. Stoic Strategies for Daily Life. Philosophy is not meant to be abstract. At least not for the Stoics. For them, philosophy was like a tool belt. Something you wear every day, something you reach for when life throws you problems. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations to be published. They were his personal notes, his private exercises in reminding himself of what really matters. In those pages, we find not just lofty reflections, but practical techniques, methods he used to master his own emotions. So how did Marcus deal with anger? Let's break down some of his most powerful strategies. 1. Prepare yourself each morning. Marcus began his days with a ritual of preparation. He didn't roll out of bed and hope the day would be kind. He armed himself with realism. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." At first glance, this sounds pessimistic. But look deeper. It's not negativity, it's armor. Marcus expected people to be flawed. So when someone was rude, ungrateful, or selfish, he wasn't surprised. He had already accounted for it. This practice diffuses anger before it even begins. Because anger thrives on unmet expectations. If you expect perfection, you're constantly outraged. But if you expect flaws, you meet them calmly. Practical application. Start your mornings by reminding yourself, I will meet people who are careless, impatient, maybe even rude. That's part of being human. I will not let it shake my peace. By rehearsing reality, you rob anger of its favorite weapon. Surprise. 2. Pause before you react. Anger is impulsive. It demands instant reaction. The sharp word, the slammed door, the rash decision. But Marcus taught himself to pause. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, slow down. Don't give anger the steering wheel. The Stoics believed there's always a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies freedom. When anger sparks, pause, breathe, step back, ask, what exactly happened? And what story is my mind adding to it? Practical application. When you feel anger rising, don't speak immediately. Don't send the text. Don't hit reply. Take one deep breath. This simple pause gives reason a chance to intervene before rage takes over. 3. See people as fellow humans, not enemies. One of Marcus's most radical practices was compassion. He reminded himself, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself, what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? This is humility at work. Instead of exploding at others, Marcus looked inward. He remembered his own flaws, the times he had been selfish, careless, or unkind. This softened his anger into empathy. He also zoomed out and saw people as part of a shared human struggle. He believed people act badly out of ignorance, not malice. In his eyes, they were not enemies, but brothers stumbling in the dark. Practical application. When someone angers you, try this exercise. Ask yourself, have I ever done something similar? Remember, this person is human, just like me. They have struggles I don't see. Shift your mindset. They are not an enemy. They are a fellow traveler, flawed and imperfect, just like me. This doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it helps you respond with patience instead of poison. 4. Zoom out, change your perspective. Marcus constantly zoomed out to see the bigger picture. He reminded himself how small each irritation was compared to the vastness of life, time, and the universe. He wrote, "Consider how ephemeral and mean human things are, and how yesterday a little mucus, tomorrow ashes or a bare bone." To him, even the grand dramas of Rome were temporary specks in the sweep of history. If empires themselves fade, why waste energy on petty insults? Practical application. Next time anger flares, zoom out. Will this matter in a week, a year? When you look back on your life, will you care about this tiny irritation? Most of the time, the answer is no. And with that perspective, anger loses its grip. 5. Replace anger with purpose. The Stoics didn't just try to suppress anger. They redirected it. They believed every emotion had energy, and that energy could be used for something better. Marcus reminded himself not to waste time in resentment, but to focus on virtue. He asked, what does this situation demand of me? Patience? Courage? Self-control? By replacing anger with purpose, he turned obstacles into opportunities for growth. Practical application. When anger strikes, don't just resist it. Redirect it. Ask, how can I act with integrity here? How can I use this challenge to practice self-mastery? 6. Return to the present moment. Anger often drags us into the past or into the future, but Marcus urged himself to return to the present moment. He wrote, confine yourself to the present. Why? Because the present moment is usually bearable. It's the stories we add about yesterday and tomorrow that make it unbearable. Practical application. When you're angry, anchor yourself in the now. What is happening right here, right now? Person said words. That's all. The rest, the meaning, the rage, is your mind's story. Drop it, and the present becomes lighter. 7. Practice daily reflection. Finally, Marcus practiced reflection. At the end of each day, he examined his actions. He asked himself where he had fallen short, where he had succeeded, and how he could improve. This daily audit kept him honest. It reminded him that progress is slow but steady. Practical application. Before bed, take 5 minutes to reflect. Ask yourself, when did I get angry today? What triggered it? How could I have responded differently? Over time, this practice sharpens awareness and builds resilience. The Stoic toolbox. So, let's gather Marcus's strategies into a simple toolbox. 1. Prepare each morning, expect flaws, and you won't be shocked by them. 2. Pause before reacting, breathe before speaking. 3. See people as fellow humans, remember your own flaws. 4. Zoom out, put irritations in perspective. 5. Replace anger with purpose. Act with virtue, not rage. 6. Stay present. Don't let your mind create extra drama. 7. Reflect daily. Learn from each failure. Grow each day. This is how Marcus lived. Not as a perfect sage, but as a man practicing, failing, reflecting, and practicing again. And if an emperor could train himself this way while carrying the burdens of Rome, then we can certainly train ourselves in the smaller battles of daily life. Marcus Aurelius shows us that anger is not conquered by one grand decision, but by daily practices, small, consistent habits that strengthen the mind. The world will always give you reasons to be angry, but with Stoic tools, you can meet them differently, calmly, wisely, powerfully. The more you practice, the more you realize that the true victory is not in silencing others, but in mastering yourself. Part 5. The Freedom Beyond Anger, Living the Stoic Way. We've explored what anger is, where it comes from, how destructive it can be, and the practical tools Marcus Aurelius used to tame it. Now we arrive at the heart of the journey. What happens when you actually master anger? Because Stoicism was never just about resisting emotions. It was about creating a life of harmony, strength, and inner freedom. To Marcus, the reward for overcoming anger was not simply calmness, but something far greater. Peace of mind, freedom from others' control, and the strength to live in alignment with nature. Let's walk through this final step of the path. 1. Inner peace, the quiet after the storm. Marcus wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Think about that. When you hold on to anger, you allow the offender to live in your mind. They occupy space inside your heart and thoughts. You replay their words, their face, their insult. They win twice. Once when they wronged you and again when you let them linger. But when you master anger, you reclaim your mind. You experience something rare in this chaotic world, a quiet soul. Peace is not found in controlling the world outside you. It's found in controlling the world within you. By mastering anger, you no longer ride the waves of other people's behavior. You stay calm, like a steady lighthouse in a storm. Modern reflection. Imagine how powerful you'd feel if no insult could shake you. No criticism could unbalance you. No provocation could hijack your peace. That's not weakness. That's unshakable strength. 2. Freedom from other people's power. Here's a Stoic truth. Every time you get angry, you give someone else power over you. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When someone provokes you and you explode, who's really in control? Not you. They are. They've pushed a button and you reacted. But when you choose calmness, you reclaim sovereignty. You are no longer a puppet dancing on the strings of insults, politics, traffic jams, or online comments. You are free. This was Marcus's greatest insight. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not being enslaved by emotions that others trigger. Modern reflection. In a world where everyone is outraged on social media, in traffic, in politics, imagine being the one person who is untouchable, who cannot be baited, who cannot be manipulated. That's real independence. 3. Resilience. Turning anger into strength. The Stoics often repeated, "The obstacle is the way." Anger is an obstacle, but when mastered, it becomes a source of strength. Why? Because every provocation is a chance to practice self-control. Every insult is a chance to practice patience. Every disappointment is a chance to practice acceptance. Marcus treated anger not as a curse, but as a gymnasium for the soul. Every trial was a weight to be lifted. Every insult a training ground for virtue. Over time, this practice builds resilience. The kind of resilience that can endure loss, betrayal, chaos, and still remain composed. Modern reflection. Imagine anger as fuel. You can either let it burn you up from the inside, or you can refine it into energy to act with clarity, to stand strong, to live with discipline. 4. Virtue as the highest good. The Stoics believe that the purpose of life is to live in accordance with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. Anger clouds wisdom. It weakens courage by making us rash. It destroys justice by making us unfair. And it annihilates self-control. To Marcus, anger wasn't just unpleasant. It was a threat to his very purpose. That's why he took it so seriously. By mastering anger, he could remain virtuous in every situation, no matter how frustrating. Modern reflection. Think of the leaders you admire, the calm judge, the patient teacher, the composed mentor. Their greatness doesn't come from never facing conflict, but from never letting conflict destroy their character. That's virtue in action. 5. A legacy of calm strength. Marcus Aurelius's life was not easy. He fought wars, lost children, faced betrayal, endured illness, and carried the weight of ruling an empire. Yet his writings reveal a man constantly striving to remain gentle, patient, and calm. His legacy is not just of an emperor, but of a human being who refused to let anger define him. That's why, centuries later, we still read his meditations. Not because he was perfect, but because he practiced every day the art of mastering himself. Modern reflection: your legacy is built the same way. Not in one grand act, but in the daily discipline of choosing calm over anger, wisdom over reaction, peace over conflict. Imagine how people will remember you if you live that way. 6. Practical closing steps, bringing it all together. Let's condense everything into a daily Stoic practice you can use. Morning, remind yourself, people will be flawed today. Expect it. During the day when anger rises, pause, breathe, ask, is this really worth my peace? A shift perspective, zoom out. In the vastness of time, does this matter? Respond with virtue. Instead of reacting, ask, what is the most patient, just, or wise thing I can do right now? Evening, reflect. Where did anger defeat you? Where did you hold your ground? How can you improve tomorrow? If you live this way, little by little, anger will lose its grip on you. 7. The final reward, a soul at rest. At the end of his life, Marcus Aurelius wasn't remembered for his anger, though surely, as a man, he felt it many times. He was remembered for his calm, his wisdom, his humanity. And that's the ultimate prize. Not never feeling anger, but never being its slave. To walk through life with a calm mind, a steady heart, and a spirit that no insult can disturb. This is the Stoic promise. This is the answer Marcus Aurelius gives us. Master anger, and you will master yourself. Master yourself, and you will live free. Closing words. So, the next time you feel anger boiling inside you, remember Marcus. Remember the emperor who faced betrayal, war, and loss, and still chose patience over rage. And remember this truth. The world will never stop giving you reasons to be angry. But you can stop giving anger the power to own you. Choose calmness. Choose clarity. Choose freedom. That is the Stoic way.